Hi, welcome to my part 2 of this multi-part review of Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. In this part, we're going to take a closer look into the world of darkness. This is a very deep, very profound world of shadows, of contrasts, and with a surprising amount of gray areas that can be twisted and reshaped to create any sort of chronicle. This is an introduction to the things that you will find in this strange world of decadence, high technology, urban passageways into the society of vampires, or kindred as they call themselves. The world of darkness is so flexible because of all of the things that you can find there. Some things of horror, some things of sophistication, some things of elegance, and some things of degeneracy, that you can handle your chronicles in any way that you like. But there are some recurring themes or perhaps aesthetic elements that constantly repeat themselves across different chronicles. The world of darkness could be defined as a setting of gothic punk theme. You can play around with the theme and the mood, but there are always these tall buildings, these places that hide many secrets, most of them unpleasant. And that's the gothic aspect of the world of darkness. You never know what you're going to find there. Everything feels haunted, and then you realize that it's all a facade to hide some even more Machiavellian intentions. On the punk side of things, there is violence, there are gang wars, there are killings, there's anarchy. The world of darkness can be adapted to any story that you wish to tell. And in this section, that is chapter 1, you have information on how to handle the theme and the mood, how to play around with these crucial factors. They give you some sample themes. For example, you have the theme of "A beast I am, lest a beast I become," because vampires are constantly struggling with this curse of Cain. A lot of vampires consider the entire biblical gravity of things to be a superstition, but some others think that there is a mystical root concerning the beast trapped within each vampire and how they have to understand this darkness within them. Then you have the theme of the masquerade. Even though vampires are quite powerful, if humanity or other supernatural beings in the world of darkness were to unite against them, they would eliminate vampires. So the greatest strength of vampires, the thing that keeps them alive, is their cunning, their wits, their intelligence to create this illusion, this vampiric facade that there are no vampires in the world. They enforce this in many different ways, and your entire chronicle could be based around this creation or support of the masquerade. Then you have the sins of the father. People rarely choose to become vampires. And you can tell many interesting stories on how your average human character suddenly got sequestered away from his normal everyday life and turned into a being that has to bear the weight of a war that started many ages ago. You also have the War of Ages. There is a constant war not only between sects and clans, but also between younger and older vampires. An example of this could be the Anarch Revolt that is currently being supported in the Onyx Path way of handling things in Vampire the Masquerade. You also have the inherent conflict, focusing more on the sect versus sect, clan versus clan, and even vampires within their same clan, looking to get an advantage, an edge, a higher position above all others. You also have conspiracies, and of course, the apocalypse. Perhaps it is real. Perhaps it is all a lie. But the apocalypse is there. Gehenna is coming and approaching. And no vampire knows exactly what to expect. You also have information on the moods. There are many things that you can add to existing Vampire Chronicles just to change the general environment, to create a new system of thematic elements and poetic dilemmas within each story. Maybe you want to enhance the sensual aspect of your chronicles, or the mysteries, the danger, or the sense of eeriness. Because even though you are playing as undead beings, there are many terrifying things, monsters that scare other monsters. And that's quite worrisome for a vampire who's trying to get the upper hand above all others. Then you have details on the kindred. As I was saying, vampires do not usually call themselves vampires. They are kindred. They want to keep that essence of civilization or society within the vampire world. So they take things such as the embrace with a lot of importance, of a sense that embracing a human, turning that human into a new vampire, could give them an advantage in the jihad, but it could also provide them with a new rival. Embracing others is not a thing to be taken lightly. In many dominions, you have to ask permission, perhaps ask the prince for permission to turn a worthy human into a vampire. Sometimes you also have to ask permission from your sire, from the vampire who turned you into a vampire, or some other powers as well. So vampires see some worthy humans as things to be preserved. They, in some sort of twisted version of falling in love, they choose a human and they decide to preserve those qualities, that drive, that inexplicable essence that they observe in humans, to create a new vampire, to participate in this never-ending struggle. Of course, the beast is always there. There is this inner darkness, this monstrous desire to just cut loose and indulge in every ungodly hunger that the vampire simply cannot stop from becoming this monster that appears many times in folklore. The beast is an animal. It's an animal soul, always trying to get the vampire into a frenzy, into madness, into anger, even into fits of fear. And the beast is always there waiting, because the beast knows that the vampire cannot hold it completely back from any affair in its undead existence. And then we have details on the aristocracy of the dead. Vampires have their own set of rules, and many things that are simply necessary for a vampire to survive, such as the consideration of how they play into the entire jihad. Many vampire elders are playing a very elaborate and dangerous game of chess. The entire world is their playing field, and they move everyone around according to different agendas and plans. This varies according to vampires, to sects and clans. And with the passage of time, new elements have been introduced into this very dangerous game. For example, in modern times, we have the introduction of high technology. This is a threat to a lot of elder vampires. Elders are not familiar with high technology. Not all of them, but most of them consider it something quite alien. And so they know that younger vampires are more knowledgeable in the use of technology. So they want to disarm younger vampires by discouraging the use of technology, of anything that the digital age can offer and beyond. But the younger vampires, if they are intelligent, they will not be fooled. They will use this technology against their elders. So it's a very interesting and subtle game. And this is just a very small aspect, gearing a bit more towards the anarchists, the anarch revolt. Because then again, there could be elders that are quite knowledgeable in all of the advantages of modern times and could be manipulating the political, social, and economic panorama through their while they are waiting, perhaps sleeping in torpor in their ages-old crypts, and yet they could be pulling the strings and manipulating all sorts of vile technological advantages to accomplish their goals. You also have details on social distinctions. Age is of great importance. Older vampires are more respected because they have kept themselves alive and running in the jihad. A vampire who has achieved many objectives and has kept away from trouble is going to be a lot more respected than, say, for example, maybe a vampire who lived for 300 years, but he was constantly getting captured, perhaps by the Society of Leopold, and experimented upon him. So that vampire, even though he's quite old, he could be the laughing stock. And so at times, vampires could be somewhat elite in their way of choosing their equals, or rather their rivals. In vampire society, first we have the fledglings. The fledglings are newly embraced vampires. They are considered almost like children in the world of vampires. Their sires, that is, the vampires that embrace them, are responsible for them for quite some time, perhaps some decades, or perhaps a century. It depends on the clan. Some clans, like for example the Tremere, keep their newly embraced fledglings in an apprenticeship period that is quite lengthy. But some others, like for example the Bruja or the Gangrel, they prefer to embrace a vampire and just let him do whatever he wants with no attachment to him. It's kind of like a parent adopting someone and just cutting him loose after a few days. Some consider it strange, but some others consider it necessary, something that will strengthen the newly embraced vampire. The kindred also have other categorizations when it comes to age. They also have the neonates, which are older vampires that have been accepted into vampire society. But you also have the ancillae and the elder vampires, who are older. They are quite old, probably between 200 to 1000 years of age. And they are already active participants in the jihad, perhaps as pawns, perhaps as kings or players, or perhaps they think they are players and they are still pawns. And then we have the Methuselah vampires, and these are really old vampires, quite alien and monstrous. As a vampire grows older, he notices the necessity to hide from enemies, to remain protected in forgotten ruins and castles and groves, but still acting as a puppet master, trying to achieve some purpose or vendetta or some more even unknowable goal. And then we have the antediluvians. These are the vampires that are closest to Cain. These are the third generation of vampires. They are completely alien to vampires. They are, just as a vampire is incomprehensible to a human, the antediluvians could be considered worse than vampires. They are true monstrous deities. And if the prophecy of Gehenna is true, they will rise and devour everyone. Then we have details on clans and sects. I will talk about more precise details concerning clans and sects in other parts of my review, but here we're going to take a small glimpse at them. There are 13 known clans in the world of vampires. The kindred share many traits and weaknesses from what would you consider the founding fathers of vampirism. But there are also sects. These are ideological organizations, and while a sect is a group of vampires or a society that shares an objective, a clan shares many strange characteristics related to blood and the mystic powers of vampires known as disciplines that are empowered by that same blood. Let's talk a bit about the clans. We have the Assamites, mysterious masters of assassination. We have the Bruja, philosopher kings that in current times are rebels with or without a cause. We also have the followers of Set, who worship a strange chthonic god while performing strange forbidden rites and protecting unknown artifacts. We have the Gangrel, bestial and untamed. They are a bit closer to the beast, more animals than civilized vampires. We have the Giovanni, who are masters not only of necromancy but also of global finances. We have the La Sombra, proud nobles who manipulate darkness and shadow. We have the Malkavians, who are completely and irrevocably insane, but have some mysterious insights concerning the entire jihad. We have the Nosferatu, who are disfigured, the most monstrous vampires. This could be debated when compared to other more unknown or mythical clans, but they are there in the darkness of sewers and warehouses, trafficking, doing all sorts of questionable things. Then we have the Ravnos, which are nomads, tricksters, but that are at the same time they are slaves to different vices. We have the Toreador, who are in love with the arts, with a sense of aesthetic that also requires adoration from their thralls. We have the Tremere, who wield supernatural power. They were once a cabal and order of wizards or sorcerers, and through treachery and rituals they became vampires. We have the Semitsi. They feel quite anachronistic. They are monstrous and masters in manipulating and reshaping flesh and bone. We have the Ventru. They are the true incarnation of the noblesse oblige aspect of the masquerade. They are the rulers of kindred, or at least they consider themselves to be rulers. And then we have the Caitiff, and they have no clan. They are a mystery, and they are looked down, or they are looked as mongrels or weaklings because they have no place in the clans. They need to do many things beyond what is expected of a participant in the jihad to gain some sort of acceptance, just vaguely. And then we have information on the sects. The sect is an expression of the vampire's political and philosophical affiliation. The sect has dogmas and objectives. Many vampires just enter a particular sect because they want the protection. There is safety in numbers. But there are others, for example, like the anarchs and the independents, who have very idiosyncratic and revolutionary agendas, so they cannot go into any of the traditional sects because they want to shake the very foundation of vampire society. One of the sects, probably the most popular, is the Camarilla. It holds up the tradition that will ensure the survival of vampires. They want to coexist with humans, or as they call them, the kine. But the kindred that are not kind or merciful towards humans, they are still their prey. But the precepts and laws of the Camarilla ensures that there is a sense of peace or order within this world of darkness. And then we have the Sabbat. They are quite cultic, religious, ritualistic in their approach to things. They believe that Gehenna is nigh, that the apocalypse is coming. So the Sabbat is planning ways on how to destroy the antediluvians and how to rule with an iron fist, or perhaps an iron fang, you could say, over humans. Vampires should be masters of humanity, ruling openly with terror, indulging in their pleasures, or so that is what the Sabbat wishes, also known as the Sword of Cain. And then we have the Anarch movement. The younger vampires have realized that the world of darkness is a mess, that the older vampires have failed, their foundations are sick or fragile. So it is up to the anarchs, it's up to the younger vampires to reshape the world of darkness according to their own desires. And then we have the Inconnu. They are an enigmatic elder sect. Almost nothing is known about them. There are many rumors, but what the sect formally wants, if anything, it's a source of speculation, an objective that predates the modern idea of sects. There are rarely more than one or two kindred of this Inconnu sect in any domain. They seem to be watchers, just waiting until they enact some mysterious purpose. And then we have the Tal Mahera. This is more of a conspiracy than a sect. They are known as the True Black Hand. They deal with strange beings of the underworld. They want to recreate the first city as described in the Book of Nod. I'm going to put a link in the description below to my about 3 years ago I did a review about the Book of Nod, so you can find some details about what this biblical vampire is all that this vampire Bible is all about. But the first city was basically Cain's first attempt at not feeling lonely. He was the only vampire, so he started embracing humans, turning them into vampires, and creating a city where humans and vampires lived together side by side. But that city failed because vampires eventually enslaved humans. So there was no peace then. And then we have the independent clans. They are a group of mini sects because they are all focused on their own clan objectives, their own agendas. They are quite unpredictable. You also have the autarkies. They are completely outside of everything related to sects. All of the jihad participation of sects has nothing to do with the autarkies. A lot of them are feared because they are so powerful to remain that they remain completely independent of the machinations and webs of intrigues of other vampires. And then we have the traditions. The traditions could be considered the bones of the masquerade. They are the pillars that hold everything together. They ensure the survival of vampires. And so the princes that rule over different domains enforce the traditions. The first tradition, the masquerade, is the most important tradition. They must keep humans from finding out that vampires exist and are preying upon humans. No matter what method they must use, different vampiric magics, disciplines, any advantage provided by high technology, the masquerade must go on. The facade must be kept, even though the Sabbat longs for a time when the masquerade crumbles and vampires rule openly over humanity. Then we have the second tradition, the domain. Princes rule supreme over their domains, but there are times where princes are actually puppets. And also some princes act as dictators. Some others provide more freedom for their subjects. So it all depends on the prince. But one thing is certain, the last word is always spoken by a prince. And then you have the third tradition, the progeny. Many, if not most, princes require that prospective sires seek their permission before performing the embrace to create fledglings. Creating vampires is not something to be taken lightly, because you could be gaining potential allies, but also potential deadly rivals. And then you have the fourth tradition, the accounting. This tradition imposes a twofold rule. First, a sire effectively owns her progeny until such time as she deems them fit to face kindred society on their own. Sires at times get in trouble because their children do many things that go against tradition and the will of a prince. So it is up to the sire to discipline the newly created vampire, and perhaps even destroy that vampire if it is asked so by the prince. You also have the fifth tradition, hospitality. A prince has the right to dictate who may stay in his domain and who must leave or suffer punishment. Almost everyone wants to remain in good terms with a prince. They hold many resources, and in order to fulfill different objectives and agendas, the prince can give that vampire freedom to act in different districts and different areas of the city. And then you have the sixth tradition, destruction, the blood hunt. If a prince decrees that a vampire must be destroyed, it basically means that that vampire is a persona non grata. So basically anyone can murder that vampire, can even perform diablerie, which is basically draining a vampire entirely of its blood, so that you take all of that power, and your generation as a vampire, your power as a vampire, could go up, giving you greater power, greater insight over what you can do with your blood, empowering your physical capabilities, and performing all sorts of dark miracles through your discipline. Now, in the next part of this multi-part review, I'm going to be talking about the domains of the dead and going into further details on titles and the mythology of the damned. So I hope that you will join me in that part of the review. As you can see, the world of Vampire the Masquerade is incredibly deep, so amazingly fleshed out that you could have chronicles and chronicles your entire life and you wouldn't even scratch the surface of this world of darkness. So thank you for watching this part of my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. I will see you in part 3 very soon.